So, the Game Awards came and went like 2 months ago because I'm doing this late, and Jeff Keighley disappointed us all once again, so we're gonna make a better list. This is going to be a discussion about the best games of 2020, starring, as I'm sure you all know, my only friend.
Oh, is that me?
I was like, please, for the love of
Oh,
God,
I'm
say
so
something.
flattered. It's nice to be here. I've been waiting for this moment a long time. How long has it been? A year?
Yeah, something like that. It was. I was like, please, for the love of God, say something. Don't make this worse than it has to be. Anyway, so.
Sorry, you consider me what?
Yeah. So, what this is, me and Adam have both agreed on what we think are 5 of the best games this year, in addition to one game that we both picked that the other one didn't play. We're going to go through each of them one by one, but before we do that, we're going to start with kind of some honorable mention type things. Games that came out in 2020, we're not going to mention whether it's because we didn't play them or just didn't really consider them worthy of the list, as well as things we played that maybe didn't come out in 2020, but played them for the first time last year.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted me to start with my my mentions.
I think we have a lot of similar mentions, so you can start.
I mean, yeah, for stuff that that actually released this year, Ghost of Tsushima is a big one. I've heard a lot that I love Sucker Punch. They made Infamous. That's all I gotta say. So it's probably fantastic.
I believe it.
I don't own Ghost of Tsushima.
I know nothing about that game, so I can't speak whether or not it's good, but
it's a cool, beautiful samurai game, and that's enough to hook me. Okay, that game was announced, I don't know if you remember this, the year of, there's sometimes always that weird trend that a lot of different, games will go for, and that was the year where we got, 3 or 4 samurai game announcements.
Yeah, because there was also Sekiro and whatever else.
And Neo. So yeah, there's that. FF7 Remake is another big one, which, based on what I know about, I doubt I would personally give Game of the Year, but for the people who like it, good for you.
I own original FF7 now, so I'll be playing that soon.
Let's see. Last of Us Part 2 as well.
No.
So Doom Eternal. When I
I was gonna say, while we're on the topic of Cyberpunk came out last year, technically.
So Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal is a good game.
Yeah, very, very good action game. From the little bit I played of it, fantastic. Perfectly advances the first Doom game is a fantastic shooter, and the second one blows it out of the water. Well, not first Doom game. It's a reboot. You get it. It's fine. And then I think the last huge one that I can think of is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yeah.
Which I've heard that's a fantastic remake. I'm so glad Vicarious Vision is now a subsidiary of Blizzard and is going to make such hit games as
the next World of
Overwatch 2 and
League updates. No, wait, that's not Blizzard. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. Anything that's that big esports type company, they're all the same company to me. As far as I'm concerned, League and Dota are made by the same company. I don't care.
Smite? I mean, well, because Blizzard actually, they have Heroes of the Storm or whatever, which is played by, I think, 6 people.
Do they?
That's, yeah. Yeah, so those are the big ones I can think of that neither of us played.
Those ones neither of us played. Ones that I have a couple that at least one of us played. Probably the biggest release of last year was Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
Now, I liked New Horizons, but in general, I was kind of disappointed with it because it just felt like it had way less content than New Leaf. It was just held back in a lot of regards. It's not a horrible game, but I felt like once I was done with the quote-unquote story, I was just kind of done with the game, which isn't what you want from Animal Crossing.
That's the thing, because that was my first Animal Crossing experience, and from you and various other friends who have a lot more experience in watching or playing those games, I really enjoyed the first couple weeks, and it fell off really fast.
Because the issue is once the game stops specifically giving you tasks, you realize how little there actually is to do on a daily basis.
Because initially the miles or whatever they give you are like this super satisfying potato chip effect of like, look at all these things that if I work for it, I can constantly like get more stuff, and then you're like, oh no, it's just gonna plateau.
Yeah, because eventually you plateau because you get to a point where you don't need to buy anything else, so it doesn't really help or give you anything of massive value.
Okay, that's the thing. Once you get the islands that you have to go to get to extra materials, I think that was the point where I was like, oh, I'm starting to reach the peak of that hill.
I'm playing a game now where like my major reason for grabbing things now is just to craft whatever stuff that doesn't have much value to me. So at this point, why am I not just playing like Minecraft? Because Minecraft is also like a very freeform creative game in that regard. Since a lot of like the core Animal Crossing stuff, while fishing and all that stuff is still nice and fun, like there was just so much more to do in New Leaf. Not to mention more use for bells. Like the fact that the store only has one upgrade is just so stupid.
Yeah, basically all you can do in New Horizons like consistently is like go to islands and completely excavate it, friggin' like sell 50 billion turnips and become a rich man, or not play the game during Easter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because like there's also like, I mean, for anyone who still is playing the game and is still getting enjoyment out of it, friggin' good for you. Like I'm glad people.
I'm glad. That's awesome.
Yeah, like, and that's how I was with New Leaf for a long time. And like I especially respect the people that somehow are able to like use all of the different furniture items and like the different customizable stuff to somehow make their games look like fucking Bloodborne. Like that's fucking awesome. Like seeing those screenshots on Twitter, I love that shit. I don't have the talent for that, but I love it. But yeah, New Horizons not a bad game, but I'd much rather just. But at the same time, going back to New Leaf I think would be hard because now all the customization's gone whenever I go back to that game. So now I'm in a weird situation with Animal Crossing. Especially like the way
it's like a weird half step, both a half step forward and back.
Especially with a lot of like my biggest thing with Animal Crossing that I think shows how little content it is the fact that so much content from previous games is being used as updates. Like the big ones like Red, like that's been a thing forever in Animal Crossing, but now art's being added in an update, diving, like stuff like that. Where I'm just like, but why does this have so much less content than base game New Leaf, which also had a giant expansion that like doubled that game's content?
Yeah, the best way to describe New Horizons is just like one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah.
The new stuff is freaking awesome. I love it. It's great.
I love I Am All of Me.
But yeah, it's got some issues.
Outside of Animal Crossing, though, Fall Guys happened this year. You may have forgotten because everyone forgot except me.
I still never played it.
Fall Guys is kind of a tragic story, I think, because that game has a lot of potential, and what I think is really unfortunate is I think they clearly wanted to do way more with content updates, but for the first like month or two of that game's existence, they basically were like, well, we can't really do too much about content because the servers can't handle this massive influx of players we didn't expect. So they spent a long time making the servers work, and then kind of once they got the servers working was about the point where a lot of people started dropping off because that's when Among Us started getting big. And like it's really sad because like season 2 and 3, especially 3 added a shit ton of stuff, and they keep adding stuff. So like Fall Guys is still getting content. I just think it's unfortunate that it kind of lost a lot of momentum.
That's the thing, because Fall Guys and Among Us, other than like aesthetics wise and like their character designs, they do have very similar kind of stories to them. It's just like the outcomes were different, and both were kind of cases of like they could not keep up with the sudden like extreme reception to them. The difference is like Among Us at least was a social game where a lot of it is based on your interactions with the people you're hanging out with. And it's like Town of Salem Mafia, that never gets old.
Yeah.
So there's that. Fall Guys is a fantastic, great idea. I love it. But it's an online competitive game, and you do need to have at least that thing keeping it going, or else it can't self-sustain itself as well.
Because like there is like to some extent there's kind of the thing that keeps you going, because it's got like that battle pass type thing, which is free for every player, you know, you have like collecting crowns to get more like clothing and stuff. You have the updates to different stuff, but without like, I do think, yeah, there isn't a social aspect, and I think as well, even if it's still fun to play most of the time, at least for me, it is a kind of game that I think for a lot of people, it starts getting boring to watch on streams, whereas Among Us never does.
Yeah. Like, Among Us is very dynamic and, like, meta-based, while Fall Guy is very fun, but it is the same, like, 20 maps or so on a loop.
Which, like I said, it's unfortunate, because they kept adding more and adding variations to those old maps to keep them fresh, so, like, there's still all that content, it just lost its momentum before it could get there.
Yeah, so good game, but it couldn't keep up, unfortunately.
My last big 2020 shout-out that I'm just going to be completely honest, it should be on this list. The only reason it's not on the main list is because I didn't beat it, and that is the sequel to the greatest roguelike and 2D platformer ever made, Spelunky 2. Spelunky 2 is incredible. It should be on the list. I just didn't beat it. Please play both Spelunky games.
I know several people who, like, die-hard Spelunky 2 is their pick for Game of the Year, and I don't blame them at all. From what I've played of that game, it's extremely fun.
It is extremely good. From what I've played, and my opinion might change once I finally beat it, which hopefully will be soon. I think I still do like the first game just a tiny bit more, mainly because the first game doesn't have the curse status effect or the spiked lizards. But apart from that, like, Spelunky 2 is a great evolution of Spelunky 1. It took what Spelunky 1 did and built upon it with the branching paths and, like, new enemies, new items, all that stuff. Both games are worth playing. This isn't like a Flash Isaac to Rebirth type thing where one just replaced the other. These are both very good games. They're both very much worth playing. They're coming to Switch this summer. Play them. They're godlike.
My interpretation of it is, like, Spelunky 1 is a lot more, like, simple pick up and play, like, bite-sized, just simple, great roguelike. Mm-hmm. While 2 is a lot deeper, a lot more complex. There's a lot more to it. Mm-hmm. And it's equally good, if not a little better, like, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't replace the original.
Exactly. And I am really excited for those Switch boards. I'm going to own Spelunky 1 on, like, 4 systems now, because I have it on Vita, and owning it on Vita got it for free on PS4. I own it on Steam, and I'm gonna own it on Switch.
God. For games that I played this year and stuff that kind of stuck with me, this one I didn't beat yet. And, oh gosh, I've been slowly whittling away at it. But Xenoblade Chronicles, fantastic game.
Oh yeah, was that
friggin'? That was this year, yeah, exactly. That was May.
You mentioned Definitive Edition, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the Wii game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2020.
Yep.
That game is extremely good, though. Its story, its characters, everything. I'm not a huge fan of that type of gameplay, but Xenoblade doesn't make me care because it's really fun still.
Yeah.
So overall, it's a game I really desperately need to beat. I need to get to it and just get through the rest of it, because I think I'm like a third or halfway done with it.
That's further than I thought. Honestly, I thought you were still in like the beginning of the game. I hadn't heard
No. But it's a great time. I really enjoy it.
So,
on top of that,
I was gonna say it was Xenoblade.
Oh, okay, continue.
I was gonna say it was Xenoblade is I'm in a similar boat but for a completely different reason. Which is, I currently do not own Definitive Edition, but I know I adore Xenoblade's story and characters and art and all of that stuff, because I've watched a full Let's Play of it. I watched Sugar Conroy play it.
Which means you played the game.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself.
Like, I adore Xenoblade's story. It is on par with some of my favorite game stories. Great characters. I want to play through the game to kind of refresh myself, because I'm a bit foggy on a lot of the details. I want to actually, you know, sit there with a controller in my hands and experience the game for myself. I haven't played it yet, though, but I still adore it. It is a godlike RPG.
Yeah, but so the rest of these are a little quicker to mention. Part-Time UFO. I don't know why. That game stuck with me. That is the most adorable game I've ever played.
It is an Adam game.
It is like I think it's made by HAL, right? So like the
it's a
Kirby
howler.
group, the Kirby crew.
Yeah, it's I love how it's like little things like that. Like same with Box Boy. Like those types of things are great.
Yeah, they're little like indie game like titles. They're just great. Like Part-Time UFO is one of the most cozy experiences for something so stressful. It is an extremely fun, cute game, and I cannot get enough of that. I need to go back and just grind through a little more of it because it's just a fun, relaxing time. Speaking of, so PS5 released, had a pretty good launch list. I could name like Miles Morales or like the Demon Souls remake.
Mm-hmm.
No, Astro's Playroom.
Yep.
This isn't sarcasm. Astro's Playroom is way too good of a platformer for what it deserves, like for what it should be.
Mm-hmm. For what is the Wii Sports of the PlayStation 5?
Exactly.
It's like because I know in that regard. No one is ever going to talk about this game except us, but it is. I don't know much about Astro's Playroom. I don't have a PS5, but like, yeah, it feels like a Nintendo Land type thing.
Yeah, because I don't own a PS5. I've played it though. And I'm telling you, that is the first thing, whenever you get a PS5, that is the first thing you should play. Because the way it uses the not HD rumble, but HD rumble, is like... Is it okay for me to use the word orgasmic?
That was a kid's game.
It's transcendent. But yeah, Astro's Playroom is just a very cool, fun time that makes your hands go wee. Oh yeah, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, bam! It's got 3 of the best games ever made on it. Woo!
I was gonna save that one for last, but since you brought it up, yeah, 3D All-Stars is one of the most anger-inducing games in history for me because I adore all 3 of those games, and seeing them just thrown into one of the most rushed, cash-grabby collections ever, and slapping a time limit on it to force people to buy it. Everything about that makes me angry. I really hate 3D All-Stars. And it's sad that I hate 3D All-Stars because Mario 64 and Galaxy are 2 of my favorite games ever made, and Sunshine's really good. So, like, also it doesn't have Galaxy 2, which also makes me angry because that's the best Mario game. I'm not arguing that. I'm mad. I hate 3D All-Stars with a freaking passion so much.
I like Super Mario Land on the Game Boy.
Yeah. As for, I want to mention 2 games that did not come out this year that I loved. One, I finally played Persona 3 FES. I started it 2019, but I finished it and played most of it in 2020. So there's that. Love, adore P3 FES. If you follow me on Twitter or know me, you know I love Persona. And then Among Us. We mentioned it earlier, but you all know what Among Us is. You know why it's great. It's Among Us.
Yeah. We should play Among Us.
And then I guess the last thing for me to mention before we get to the list. 3 games that got updates that were awesome to me. That even if they didn't come out this year, the update itself was enough to warrant mentioning. 1, Darkest Dungeon got a multiplayer update. Awesome.
Oh, was that this year?
Yeah, that was this year. Darkest Dungeon got its multiplayer update. Stardew Valley got 1.5, I believe, is 2020, or was that really early 2021?
That was 1.5 of Stardew Valley was like late December. I'll just say for convenience.
Whatever.
Maybe. It might have been January. I don't care.
It's close enough. I'm counting it. Stardew Valley 1.5 adds so much content to the game. Tons of endgame stuff, which is really important for that game. Because that was kind of the slight issue with it, was once you got past year 2, it kind of dipped off from what you could do. Now there's so much to do. I've been going back to that game regularly now. And finally, all 4 Super Smash Bros. Ultimate characters. Byleth, Min Min, Steve, and Sephiroth. I adored all 4 of those packs, yes, including Byleth. They're all great. Steve was one of my most wanted characters. Steve, Min Min, and Byleth. 3 of my most wanted characters. I didn't necessarily want Sephiroth, but I'm not complaining. He's freaking badass, and he's like one of my mains now.
It's like one of those things I never really considered, because what do we expect from Square?
Yeah.
But I have no complaints. Sephiroth's one of the most iconic, probably the most iconic like video game antagonist who's actually like written.
Who's not Bowser, yeah.
Who's not Bowser or Eggman. So yeah, that entire pack was great.
Yeah,
I will also
super excited for the last 3.
yeah, there's, and then they're gonna reveal Fighter Pass 3 because Sakurai never sleeps.
I would be excited if they do, but also slightly like, come on, man, you don't gotta do this.
Take a break.
Yeah.
I will say another one for updates is, I love Terraria. The final update of Terraria dropped. I forget when actually 1.4 dropped. I know like the final portion of 1.4 dropped pretty recently. Still haven't played it to any like meaningful extent of like actually experiencing that new content. But from what I've heard, it's like it rounds out everything in a very perfect way.
Yeah, because that's what I've seen. Like 1.3 kind of added like the real end of the game and like kind of finishing the game, whereas 1.4 was kind of rounding out everything else.
Yeah. Anyways, Terraria's fantastic. Play Terraria.
Minecraft also got some updates or something. Anyway, are you ready to talk about the list, or do you have anything else?
I played Honey Pop again.
Yeah, shout out to Ultra Despair Growers for continuing to give me a venting point for my mental health. Anyway, let's talk about our actual list. Are you ready?
Woo! Let's go!
Alright. And there's a transition, and then I'll kind of introduce the game, and then we'll go.
Oh my god, it's Shadow House!
I'm sorry, what? What the fuck did you just do to me?
Anyways, transition.
We're gonna keep that in the video. Fuck you. So, it's probably going to sound like a bit of a joke that a collection of board games is one of the best games of 2020, but it is. Clubhouse 51 Worldwide Classics. Yeah, this game is so fucking good.
I have sunk an upsetting amount of time into this game.
It is,
or I guess games.
It has quickly
yeah.
become one of my most played Switch games. It is... I don't even know, like, fully how to describe it, because, like, on the surface, you wouldn't think that, like, I would need this game or care that much about putting too much time into it, since I own Tabletop Simulator. I've owned it for years. But here we are.
Okay, because my whole thing with it of why I think it's so addicting, one, it is, like, I love Tabletop Sim. It's like a physics engine. Yeah. But this is just very, like, quick, snappy. Mm-hmm. Like, all the mechanics just work in a super fluid and nice way. It's presented in a very clean way. One of the big things that got me into it, even before you got the game, I was going off about this, is it has, achievements, essentially, like medals. And, there's 51 games, and maybe you're just getting it to play like Uno or something because you couldn't be bothered to buy actual Uno. Sorry, copyright. Last card. And gosh. Yeah, so you'll usually get set in your ways, but if you're like me, it's like, but I really want those medals. So you're gonna try out different games, watch them, and eventually you will most likely find something that you fall in love with out of nowhere. I didn't expect to be as addicted as I am to, Mancala or, quote-unquote, Yacht Dice.
Yeah, Yacht Dice. Yahtzee is so much fun in this game.
Yahtzee is the game that, always looked like the stupidest thing in the world to me, and then actually playing it through the system made me appreciate the appeal of it.
How to play Yahtzee. Because Clubhouse, it really helps because it's it's on the surface, it's a bunch of board games, who cares? But it's injected with that Nintendo charm, which is what makes it so good. It's got that same wonderful feeling as playing something like Wii Sports Resort, which I also have an upsetting amount of hours in. It has that kind of draw of sure, I could just play chess in tabletop or even just on chess.com or whatever, but playing it on Switch with Clubhouse is so nice because you have that feel of the sound design, the effects, the way everything moves. It's just something about it is so satisfyingly designed, and also it's just really pretty. It's nice.
I like it.
It's really good. Y'all the
Add
achievements
Zelda
add a
cards,
lot.
please.
Yeah. Uh, there's also something else I love about it that I think is really like a very nice addition to the game. Because, like, you know, it's worldwide classics. It's games from all over the world that have been played for years and generations, and Pig's Tail. It has fucking, like, I love that it gives you
The
little,
tips.
yeah, like the little bits of trivia about each game. Some are funny, but some are just funny because they clearly had nothing to write. But some of them are like actually interesting little bits of trivia about like where these games came from and how they used to be played and how Hounds and Hares is the worst thing ever made.
It's surprisingly fascinating in that regard. Like I like games like that. Like I guess Brawl is this the Super Smash Bros. Brawl of
Both tell you about
board
worldwide
game.
classics.
Yeah. So I just like that museum aspect of a lot of games and kind of giving me that little like rundown about their history and stuff like that. I also like how it teaches games extremely well. Stuff that like if you were to just show me someone playing, I'd be like, what is going on? What the heck? But the way it teaches everything with like very few exceptions. I'm looking at you, Renegade. I hate you. How do I get it. I get it. But
how?
But I don't get it. But for the most part, everything is taught really well.
Yeah.
It also like there's 51 freaking games.
Yeah. And a piano.
There's a lot. And a piano.
There's also what I also love is how much like a lot of games have like different variants to them that can spice it up and like you will always have something else to do. Yeah, I will say playing with randoms online is a coin flip as to whether or not it'll work, which is really sad since you're playing fucking checkers. But you know, thanks Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but like, if you have like a friend with a stable internet connection, it works fine. Like, you know, me and you play the game and it runs flawlessly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, just having something like even just like was essentially Wii Sports Bowling online is really cool. And I don't know, like to me, this game complements Tabletop Simulator really well because for me the main draw of Tabletop Sim isn't the games that come packaged with it or just that it's a board game simulator. It is the fact that it has Steam Workshop support and is basically infinite and you can play anything. Whereas Clubhouse is great for those like mainstays of board games that you can play what is like now my favorite way to play basically any of these games with few exceptions. Like some games I don't like the rules they use, like President or Poker. But aside from those, like, these are my ways of playing, you know, like, any game in this pack of, like, honestly, like, this is one of my favorite ways to play Uno now, just because of how fast it is, even if it's technically not Uno.
Okay, but here's my rebuttal.
Okay.
It can't be Game of the Year. It's got sliding puzzle.
See, that's why it's 5th.
I want every medal. I want to get every medal. And that monstrosity is the one thing that's going to crush my dreams.
It is very funny. It is like, yeah, there's a couple that aren't great, but there's 51. Who cares? You know, you'll get over it.
There's a version of sliding puzzle, and I can't even beat the base. It's impossible.
I do think sliding puzzle is impossible. I think it's a trick.
It's a ruse.
And
it's a social experiment.
If there is at least one final thing that we can mention about this game, I don't know if you have anything else, but there's at least one more thing I can think of. Sevens. The fact that this game introduced me to what Sevens is. Thank you.
It's the crack cocaine of card games.
I don't know if that's... The crack cocaine of card games is whenever you use a playing card to chop up your lines of crack cocaine.
And where are you going to get the playing cards from your winnings in 7? That's how 7's...
That's all... What? It's a generic card deck.
I need to call my therapist 1 second. I gotta call him.
Oh. He's gone. Sevens is a fun game. Let's move on. So that time of year passed as it does every year, which is the year that Jackbox Games releases the new Jackbox Party Pack 7, and I am inclined to say that this is the best they have ever done. Jackbox Party Pack 7 is the first time where I have played all 5 games in a Jackbox and didn't say, I'm good on that one.
There are finally no stinkers in this pack. Every single one has one. Sometimes they're just okay. Sometimes they're terrible.
Sometimes there's 3 stinkers in the case of Party Pack 1, because the only reason to buy Party Pack 1 was just drawful.
Sometimes it's a good idea that's honestly really cool, like Joke Boat, that goes on for 50 minutes longer than it should.
Yep. And sometimes it's words, Spud. But Jackbox Party Pack 7 finally did it. They finally made a Jackbox game where all 5 games are absolute winners. The closest was 6. 6 got close to all of them being winners because Joke Boat was at least okay. I just didn't want to play it ever.
Joke Boat was fun until you realized there was a second round.
Yeah, it's that type of game. Party Pack 7 I don't think has an issue like that for me. It's that good. It is so
Every
great.
single game is super snappy, super effective. They each have their place. Like, I would say probably the one I'm least inclined to go back to personally is like maybe Talking Points?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's completely interchangeable for me with Patently Stupid from Party Pack 5. On that note, though, still great, still really fun. I've enjoyed every experience I've had with that one. And then Blather Around, which is like no visual charades, which sounds really stupid but works super well.
Okay, let's go through one by one. Let's start with Blather Around since we just mentioned that. Blather Around is super fun. It is, because hearing about the game, I thought that was going to be the mediocre one. It was going to be like the earwax of this pack.
Yeah.
But, because basically the whole idea of Blather Around is you are given a word, or you're given a choice of words. You pick one, and basically, yeah, it's charades, but with words. So basically what you have to do is, with like the limited sentences and words that the game gives you, you have to try and vaguely describe what you are talking about. And you can also do other things like say, it's kind of like this thing that this person said, and all of that. And it's really entertaining seeing, kind of having to think outside the box for how you describe things. I'm trying to remember like some of our best descriptions of things, because there were a few really funny ones.
I got mad playing once because I said it was like a colorful like group of protagonists, and not a single one of you guessed Power Rangers.
Yeah, none of us said Power Rangers. Yeah, I forgot about that. There was I'm trying to remember.
It was like irritating it was like irritating show or something. And I forget what the topic was, but somebody got it like on the dime.
There's a few of those. Like I do love some of my favorite rounds are wherever like you type something in and instantly someone's like, yeah, I got it. Oh yeah, that was one of my favorites. Was it was something like saying, yeah, I think it was Ash. He said like one of his clues based on something that someone else had said was like, they're friends with JFK, I think, and I figured out it's like,
it was Clone High.
I was like, oh, it's got to be it's Joan of Arc or Gandhi or one of them because it's a Clone High reference. That's what he's getting at, and I figured it out.
Yeah, they were like, it's similar to Abraham Lincoln and Joan of Arc. I'm like, what are they talking about?
Oh, yeah. It was great.
So stuff like that's super fun.
It's super fun. I adore that with this game. It's so, it is way more fun than it should be.
Talking Points?
Talking Points is kind of the next one. So Talking Points I think is really interesting because, yeah, like you said, it's kind of interchangeable with Patently Stupid, where, you know, they're both like get up and present type things. But whereas Patently Stupid is more about like writing down your thing, getting your whole idea in your head, and then presenting your comedy bit and, you know, doing your stand-up. Talking Points is a bit different because Talking Points is very much an improv game. You can only,
it's collaborative improv,
Yeah,
and it's really cool.
you can only go into it with the most basic idea of what you're going to do because you have your partner. Because the whole idea is, you're basically doing a slideshow presentation, but another player is creating the slideshow for you and trying to, big air quotes, help. And in doing so, you basically have, based on whatever they put up on screen, because you don't know what they're going to put up on screen until everyone else sees it, you have to try and improv something that helps allude to your point. And it's really interesting in that regard. It's like, that's what I love about Talking Points. It's that kind of self-destructive teamwork that you have to engage in.
It's very funny, engaging. The like stock market-esque like rating system is extremely entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a good old time. I like it.
It is. It's extremely good. I don't have too much else to say about it other than that. Other than just also.
Yeah, that's a lot of Jackbox games. They're like self-explanatory.
Also, of course, the patented Jackbox stock images. I don't know where they get these.
Oh my gosh,
they're so dumb.
They are beautiful.
The next one is
Champed Up?
Champed Up, yes, that's what it's called. Champed Up. It is TKO, but you're making a wrestler.
I prefer this to TKO. TKO still has a purpose, and I love TKO. But man, making these stupid, dumb wrestler superheroes, and like whatever meta stupid inside jokes you're having, and then having the inverse show up, and then it's like, oh, I'm just gonna have them dance around, maybe I'll get a point.
Yeah, just keep tapping the flip button, it does nothing.
Don't worry, my dancing Joe Biden will win this fight.
So the whole premise of Champed Up is basically you are given a prompt of like, you have to create the champion of X, and then someone else sees your champion, but they don't know what they're the champion of, and they have to try and make a competitor to that, and then everyone votes on who the champion of that thing is. But then in round 2, it's really awesome because then you start with creating your champions, but now you have to do a second round with a champion of something that neither of you knew, and you can also tag in your old champions, and it's really interesting just trying to get as many votes as possible with your weird MS Paint drawings that you made.
It almost feels like a kind of this like perfect masher of like Quiplash, bracketeering, and TKO, and kind of just making this super fun, like, I would almost describe it as falsely competitive experience, because you're not, I wouldn't say you're really there to win in Champed Up, at least in my experience. It's more just the crackhead nature of it that you're just feeding into.
Yeah, by the way, side note, bracketeering, underrated Jackbox game. No one talks about it.
Oh, 100%.
It is extremely fun. It's extremely funny. I still personally prefer TKO by a tiny margin, because TKO is... like, for me, TKO, I think, because there's the champion of whatever and then your character and their name. To me, there's something very funny about the no context image with a bullshit caption.
And then you can buy it and put it on a shirt for
The fact that you can buy a real shirt of that and wear it in public, you can wear that to church. You can do whatever you want. It's so funny. And those shirts are, like, surprisingly cheap from what I saw for them being, like, custom made for this.
Yeah, they're like, what, $15?
Something like that.
15, 20.
Plus shipping or whatever. Like, they're really cool. And, like, just the fact that that's a thing to me just makes TKO just a bit better. But they are both really good. Both kind of have their own purpose and are both really worth playing. The devil's in the details. Why the fuck is this game so good?
The details.
Why is this game so good?
It is one of the most fun, like, co-opetitive games I've played.
This is a game of pure hypocrisy, and it's something special.
It is get actually furious at your friends,
and then do the exact same thing
you're planning to do to them because you want to win.
So the whole
it's like in a household.
So the whole concept, is there another Jackbox game that's like this where everyone is working towards a shared goal? I guess Bomb Corp?
There's Bomb Corp.
That's like the only one I can
But that's not... But that is purely collaborative. So there's nothing like... The only reason you're going to lose is because you screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as complex here. It's like WarioWare.
Yeah.
It's just short, quick minigames.
So the whole idea...
that affect everyone around.
Yeah, so the whole idea of this game is that you are all playing as a demon in a family, where the whole idea is that you're just trying to be a quote-unquote normal family. The whole thing is set up to be a sitcom, which is already just such a great, like, framing device. This game also does, like, its visuals and everything really well. That's something I love about Jackbox, is the theming of every game is really cool. Devils in the Details, though, is so good because basically, yeah, you're doing all these little mini games, many of which require you to work with someone else, which requires you to talk to them. And when you're playing with 8 people, it's just 8 people yelling over each other, just trying to actually hear each person. And if you are playing in a group that's got the quiet person, I'm sorry to the quiet person, but they are not going to help.
I'm so sorry, Pedro and Mishi.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think Amber likes playing that game with us. She hates it.
That's the thing. Like, that game can be very overwhelming to someone, but also
it's so funny.
It's the charm.
But on top of all of that, while you're working towards while you're all working towards the shared goal, you also get points for doing tasks. And there are selfish tasks you can do that don't contribute to the goal that give you a lot of points, but if too many selfish tasks get done, it halts all progress, and everyone has to work together to fix the fuck up you just made. And it's really funny that on your phone or your device while you're doing that, it says, berate the player, yell at them.
Alright, Amber, I need to find the paprika. Michelle, get the frig off the TV!
My favorite thing, every goddamn time, Victor would get the most, like, viscerally angry about someone doing a selfish task, but he does them more than anyone.
Also, Hungry's way too good at that game, and it scares me.
Oh, yeah, Hungry's he's scary. It is...
See, this is what's so good about Jackbox. You have these very personal, like, connections with your friends and the things that come with it, and all these memories.
Like,
that's what makes Jackbox great.
Because we've streamed Jackbox a good few times, and it's really fun to stream Jackbox and play with viewers, but there is nothing quite like getting a group of 8 or more friends sitting around and having such a personal, inside joke-filled game. And that, in my opinion, aside from one, I think all Jackbox games are worth buying. If you want the one to get, I think 7 is one of the best now. But, I mean, you can't really go
I would say 7, 3, and 5 are probably the biggest ones to, like, go.
6 is really good.
6 as well, I was going to say, because 3 had both Quiplash 2 and Trivia Murder Party, but 6 and 7 kind of amped that up. Which, speaking of, Quiplash 3, it's the best version.
So Quiplash 3 is the sequel to the best Jackbox game, which is Quiplash 1, not 2.
Sorry, Quiplash XL.
Yeah, Quiplash XL is the best. It is the best Jackbox game. That's why it's sold separately. You can just buy it separately. Quiplash 2 fixes my issues that I had with Quiplash 2, or Quiplash 3 fixes my issue with 2, which is not to say 2 was bad. 2 was fine. 2 was really good. It gave more prompts. It gave custom prompts, which was awesome. But my issue with it was that the last Lash just kind of sucked and it didn't have as many prompts as XL. 3, I don't know if it's going to have the lack of prompts problem. And the lack of prompts problem only comes up if you play Jackbox a ton. But Quiplash 3 fixed the last Lash because now it's the trip Lash where you have to basically give 3 answers to 1 prompt, which is really interesting and allows for a lot of creativity. The normal game is still just really fun. You now have the ability to create your own custom prompts, and something I love that it added is now for, like, custom prompt packs that are getting played a lot and are trending, you can just access straight from the game. They're just on the menu, which is really cool. And it allows for, like, it makes sharing your prompts way more than just either something you only do with friends or, I don't know, a code you put on Twitter and hope people actually play.
So basically, Jackbox 7's pretty good.
It is the best Jackbox game. If you had to kind of rank these games, how would you, just the 5 in this pack, how do you feel about it?
Talking points, blather around, champed up. I can't decide between Devils in the Details and Quiplash.
Yeah,
so I'll just put them next to each other.
That's basically my order. I think I like Quiplash 3 just a little bit more than Devil, mainly because Quiplash 3 is just the definitive Jackbox game. It does not matter how it doesn't really matter. Like, being funny obviously helps, but it doesn't matter that much. You can put anyone in front of a game of Quiplash, they'll get it, they'll write their prompts, and they'll laugh. It doesn't matter. That's why I like Quiplash a lot, but Devils in the Details is something special.
You know, there was another game this year that ends in a 7 that was also pretty good. It's not Final Fantasy.
I don't even know what you're talking. Oh, right. So although this is technically a 7th game, it's not called that in America where we live, but Yakuza 7, or as we know it, Yakuza Like a Dragon, is a game that I expected to love, but I didn't expect to love this much, to a point that it is now one of the best JRPGs I've ever played in my life.
It is... Okay, this is both a controversial and not controversial take.
Mm-hmm.
It is the best Yakuza story, which I know this is the only Yakuza game you've played, but the best way to simplify it, which I've said before, is it is Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 1 mashed together and retold, but way better.
Mm-hmm.
Which is impressive because both of those stories are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So, oh man, because like, so I know some people might give me shit for my first Yakuza game being the 7th, technically 8th, or I don't know, I think there's more.
It's a soft reboot.
The thing about this game...
It's meant to be a new start.
I think that there is a reason I think in the West it's not called Yakuza 7, and that was to make it clear that you could start with this game, because even though, yes, this game does happen after the other games, and there are clear references to it, it didn't really bug me. As long as you understand... As long as you know who Kazuma Kiryu is, you're fine. You can play this game.
Yeah.
That's basically the only
as long as you vaguely know what the Yakuza series is from an outsider perspective, you're completely fine. It doesn't... Like, people have been like, oh, it spoils a lot of crap about, like, old games. Not really. And anything it does, you probably won't even notice, but it really doesn't.
Because for me, my thing was like I got told, not specifically since I want to play the rest of the games, but like I was told kind of vaguely about like some stuff that is alluded to from past games. The thing about them to me is like, yeah, for me it's like, how do I describe this? Like, okay, this game I think will have a different context depending on how you play it. Because for example, one thing that I was told about was the fact that like the Omi Alliance was the thing, and a bunch of that stuff about like what happened to the Omi and stuff is basically the plot of the other Yakuza games. But that didn't bug me, because to me at least, just playing this game, for me it was just the setup to this story. That backstory didn't matter to how this game story is told, especially because the Arakawa family is just this new thing that is what this game especially centers around.
All you basically like need to know, which is what the game gives you, is that there's the Tojo clan and the Omi Alliance. They're enemies, which is why, I guess, spoilers for the first chapter of the game, but it is such a shocking surprise, like a second chapter, but it's the first like 2 hours of the game. It's such a surprise that, you know, one of the leaders of like who Ichiban respects more than anything, like basically his father, who was part of the Tojo clan, all of a sudden, time skip, he basically sold everything to become a higher up in the Omi Alliance, which is like a complete betrayal of all his morals as far as you can tell.
Yeah.
Really good framing device. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, and that's what makes it work so well. I'd say like the only thing that to me feels like a quote-unquote spoiler is just the backstory of the fifth party member. That's like the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but it's not as much of a spoiler as... It's not that big of a spoiler.
The other thing for me... I was gonna say, because yeah, like, at least for me, having played 7 first, because the game clearly follows up on some stuff in previous Yakuza games, but keeps it all really vague, for me personally, that makes me really interested, because this to me feels like a tease of a story I didn't see, and I want to see, and I can see because those games exist. And it didn't spoil so much that I feel like I'm gonna go into the game knowing the twists, because I don't. You know, I just saw this, you know, I just heard about this thing, and I'm excited to see what that thing actually means in context.
Exactly. It serves its purpose as a soft reboot phenomenally, because it gives you that intrigue and kind of that drive to go back and see what's up with, like, Kiryu and Majima and Saejima and all those characters. And that can be your launching off point into the series. There's no reason not to start with 7.
It's like, to me at least, from what I know about the series, it's kind of like starting with 0, where it's like, yeah, 0 alludes to stuff that happens in later games, but you can still start there. There's nothing wrong with starting there. You know,
in fact, 0 is considered the best starting point.
Yeah.
Despite what it alludes to consistently.
I guess, kind of getting away, though, from just how this game fits into the Yakuza universe. As a standalone game, holy fuck, this is so good.
Such a good story. Kaiji Tang's dub performance in this game might be my favorite dub performance of any game, because I know there are a couple issues with the consistency of the dub, not in terms of quality, but like there are a lot of people who just aren't speaking English, especially when you do like the side missions or
there's a lot of
like enemies.
Because I know you didn't do like any side quest because you're you.
Okay, I did. It's just I got too caught up in how good the plot was, and I kind of stopped after a little bit.
So with a lot of the side quests, what you notice, because it's kind of like a social link in that way, where the first and last event are voice acted every time, but the middle typically isn't, and just kind of uses like those little repeating dialogue lines to kind of give like the vague emotion of how the person's supposed to be feeling. And with those, whoever Ichiban's talking to will not be speaking English. The enemies don't speak English, shop owners don't speak English. There's little things like that that are kind of like minor issues, but the main and like there's also like, I don't know, a couple minor characters that have like just okay voices. But for the main cast, especially the party members, every single one, godlike voice acting. Especially Kaiji Tang.
It is an unparalleled dub, in my opinion. Like, there are fantastic dubs across the board, but there is, like, maybe one performance I can point to where I'm like, I guess that could have been a little better. It
is extremely good. The combat is... hearing that Yakuza 7 is going to be a turn-based JRPG sounds like a shitpost, but... man,
it was initially.
Yeah, but it is so... it is one of the most satisfying JRPGs I've ever played, because it, you know, I mean, it's like Persona 5 is a meme, but it takes so much inspiration from not only Persona 5, although heavy from there, but also tons of other JRPGs, as well as, like, implementing aspects from other Yakuza games. Hell, like, it has, like, button prompts, like it's Paper Mario. Like, it takes so much from so many games.
It's a very dynamic RPG system that kind of brings the, you know, like, high octane, like, straight action aspect of the original games and brings it to that more, like, not sterile, but kind of more slow-paced attitude of strategy. Yes, slow-paced strategy aspect of, like, an RPG. It's handled very well.
One of my favorite examples of the way the game kind of meshes turn-based with, like, real-time is whenever you hit an enemy, sometimes, you know, you'll knock them down so they fall on their back and they have to get up. If you are fast enough with whoever is next in line to move, if you're fast enough before they get up, you can run over and do a normal attack, which will be basically a guaranteed crit if you do it while they're still down, but you have to be quick because they're getting up. And stuff like that's really cool. Same with, like, a lot of... It has another influence, Chrono Trigger and other games like it, where depending on, like, where enemies and your party member are standing, that can kind of influence how your moves work. A great example of that is your first party member, Adachi, he has a move called Reckless Charge, which he just kind of charges forward at someone, but what you want to do is target the person who's furthest in the back, because then he's going to plow through everyone else who's in front of them. So it's a lot of stuff like that. That's really
it's
cool.
Just a very nice dynamic system.
There's the job system, which every job feels really unique and really different, and really fun to use.
It's just good.
The world the world's fun to explore. The characters are all great. Their interactions, because something this game does that I love, there are so many just little stupid interactions that you can have. Because, like, while running around randomly, if you just pass by a location, you can press triangle, and the characters will start talking about something, like, relating to where they are, and have these little, really funny little conversations. When you go to eat dinner with them, or lunch or whatever, they can have conversations while they're eating. They have drink links, because this game is shameless about what it's stealing from, which are really good and give the characters individual personalities and growth. It's just so fucking good. I love the only slight minor issue I have, which is just the fact that, like, well, one, I played it on a base PS4, which means it took years to load. But two is the fact that the side quests, while really fun and good, a lot of them involve running to a place, watching a cutscene, that cutscene ending, and then you running to the next location or fast traveling there, which takes equal amounts of time because of loading. So
yeah, it's got that jank, but I don't care though. Main plot, we can't get into it.
Yeah, but
because oh my gosh,
if you're
play this game,
there's also
so
there's also the fact that the loading issue doesn't matter if you're on a Pro or a PS5. So
you're right.
I just on a base PS4 because, you know, I don't use my PS4. I have used my PS4 more this year than I ever have before.
Yeah, I can relate on that front.
I mean, you actually used your PS4 though. I bought my PS4, played 2 games on it, and didn't use it for 2 years.
Listen, you're a Persona fan. It's fine. Which, on that note, like, I get the meme of Yakuza Like a Dragon being compared to Persona, but honestly,
it is so much
if
like
you are
Persona
a Persona fan, well, if you are a Persona fan and you haven't played a Yakuza game but want to see what it's about, play Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's very worth it.
Yeah, it's like that's what got me, like that was what made me want to play it. Was I always had interest in Yakuza. I love story-driven games. I knew Yakuza would be something I'd like. But the thing that finally pushed me to get into it was the fact that the next one was a JRPG that, while looking at gameplay, reminded me of Persona, which is why, I don't know, this is a tangent that is a side thing, and I won't stay on for long, but it's why the whole this reminds me of P5 being a meme that people hate on kind of bugs me, because, like, most people play games because they remind them of things they like. That's not exclusive to P5 fans. Like, you know, don't be that guy. If someone got into Yakuza because they saw Yakuza 7 reminded them of Persona 5, that's not something to be made fun of. That means they got into a series you like. Don't be such a gatekeepy bitch.
Yeah, so I guess to sum up, very good game. Like 10 out of 10 story, super fun combat.
Great characters. Every party member.
Great characters.
Ichiban is
a pretty good soundtrack.
Ichiban's like one of the best friggin' protagonists ever. Namba, I adore. Psycho could fucking crush my balls. They're all great. I love. I
can't. Well, if you like Persona because you're on this channel, yeah, Yakuza 7's there for you if I guess you want to get your nuts stomped on or something. I don't know.
I do.
There is another game that, if you like Persona, I guess less directly similar, but same dev. It's published by. We're gonna talk about a game next that's published by Atlas.
Strikers didn't come out this year, Adam.
Next slide. Sentinels Aegis Rim is like talking to the friend that you really like and you really like hanging out with, but they won't shut up. But you don't want to tell them to shut up because whatever they're talking about is strangely intriguing and is so fascinating, if not so random.
13 Sentinels.
You need to know what they're saying. Yeah, 13 Sentinels to Aegis Rim is a masterpiece. Yeah, it's made by Atlas.
No, it's not.
This is the Persona. Well, it's not made by Atlas. It's published by Atlas. It's made by Vanillaware.
Yes.
Yeah, people behind Odin Sphere, Dragon's Crown. A lot of freaking good games.
Huge tits.
Yeah.
13 Sentinels is, as I'm sure you would agree, debatably one of the most unique video games I have ever played from a storytelling and even a gameplay perspective.
It has the greatest plot in a work of fiction I've ever seen, in my opinion. Not best story, and that's a different, not best narrative, different thing. I'll get into that when we talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
But its actual plot and its world building and the way it uses its characters in perspective and the way the story is told, it's so magnificent.
So, for those who do not, for those who do not know what 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is, one, I don't blame you. Atlas didn't promote this game, but two,
nobody bought it.
It is very sad. I was surprised it even hit 300K, which isn't like horrible, but man, should be more. So 13 Sentinels is...
Hit 300K?
Yeah, I believe so. Like, worldwide, after, like, the Western release, yeah. But, basically, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is a game where there are basically two modes to it. One is Destruction, which is kind of the main premise where you're fighting in giant robots and fighting robot kaiju, and that's kind of like... It is the climax of the story, basically. Whereas there is Remembrance, where you take control of 13 different protagonists that you switch between and see all of their different stories, all told kind of out of order. So basically, you are piecing together everything that happened to these different protagonists as like their stories cross over and mesh together, and they are all so freaking good, and every protagonist in this game is an incredible character. All 13 are just some of my favorites.
It's the kind of story that, in concept and being told how it's told, sounds so overly complicated and feels like you won't understand anything to come out of it. But the way it is told and kind of the way it structures itself, which it is very freeform in how you can experience it, but has enough pacing to it and how it like bars you off from certain things that even if you are experiencing things in completely different orders and in completely non-linear ways, it still drags you along. Not drags, but it leads you along in a pretty easy to understand way. You will perpetually have questions. There is not a single moment in this game where you're not having a new question raised to you about what's going on. But not only does it keep you interested, hopefully, and engaged, and gives you a lot more to chew on and answers a lot of stuff, but miraculously, which I didn't think was possible, and I was constantly dreading it, the ending, not only on a logical and like world building basis, like resolves everything and explains everything, but beyond that, on an emotional level, gives satisfying endings to literally every single character in the game.
Yes, it is so fantastic, and it is a game that, just hearing the premise of it, because like there are other games that have attempted something like this, not to the scale necessarily, but have attempted similar type things, and so many of them falter in some way. There's some plot hole they didn't think of or whatever, and there's, especially with a game that's doing a story this big with 13 protagonists, it feels like this game has so much potential to just at some point just fail, have one giant plot hole that ruins everything or whatever, but I cannot think of a plot hole in this game.
I can think of literally one plot moment that's not a plot hole in the slightest. It's just like slightly unnecessary, but I get why it's there, and that's it. It's not a plot hole. People will disagree, but it's very easy to debunk them if you know what you're talking about with this game. It's not a stretch. There are some... Everything is rationalized.
There is also a kind of a third mode, kind of, which is analysis, where you can you can look back at the timeline, so you can actually see what order everything happened in, as well as like bios and like little things written for every single character and object in the game, from the really important from the super important to the completely mundane description of what a hot dog is, you can read on everything in this game.
I have the most playtime in analysis. It's a very good game mode. No, there is not a single notable physical object or concept in this game that is not in the data log, in the mystery files. Everything from innocuous pictures that you've been told about to characters to scientific concepts and devices to how the different sentinels, which are like the giant mechs, work and function, and the systems that go into them. Everything you could possibly... Every single thing about the lore and how this world works that you could possibly want to know is in there.
Not to mention
including...
What I was gonna say, what I think is personally like one of the most important descriptions in there is kind of like the bullet points of what happens to each character, so you can know like what order those happened in, and like kind of wrap your head around maybe what you just saw. There's, I mean, what I obviously I won't say it, but what is probably the biggest twist in the game, I was really happy to have analysis on it to fully clarify the gravity of what that is. And that's what I love. If you actually are willing to go into analysis, there will be multiple times in this game where you will pause and be like, I have to read that and freaking learn more
Fully
about that.
Have it sink in.
And what is really nice about that as well is even while you're in the middle of the story, you can kind of suspend the game you're playing and go straight to analysis and check something. So even if like in the middle of a conversation, you can fact check and check your notes on whatever. It's really good.
And yeah, you also, again, like you said before, have the timelines of every character. You can always check back on that, kind of figure out where things piece together. Their individual timelines in the overall timeline, and then you get even more of those when you do beat the game, which is like one of the strangely greatest completion bonuses ever. So there's all of that. Such a good mode. The story is phenomenal. We can't talk about the story because I refuse to spoil anything from the first 10 minutes of that game and onward at all. Just play it. If it's $60, it's worth it. It very, very often is on sale for $30, so it's worth it.
Buy it.
And even if you're not just there for the story, even though it's one of the greatest told, there is the combat, which is not as good as the story. But on that note, is so freaking good, so freaking fun, and is super addicting.
It's super fun, super addicting. The characters have like conversations between battles, which gives like more depth to what's going on. It helps add to the gravity of like the situation, and it's just a lot of it's just really funny.
Well, the weirdness with 13 Sentinels is that it is a game extremely hard to sell on someone without them playing it, because it sounds so much weirder and so strange until you play it. Because the best way to put the combat, and please don't let this turn you off from it, I promise you, is that it's a real-time strategy tower defense RPG, I guess?
Kinda.
In a way, it's very hard to put. You have to play it to understand what we mean. It's also top-down-ish.
Yeah.
The cool way to put it, that's the way that still doesn't even justify how cool it is. You're running around with a bunch of mechs fighting a bunch of monsters.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You've got a team shooting massive, like, barrages of missiles and, like, slicing them down. It is... Watching the gameplay of it does not justify or, like, show you how immersive it truly is and how effective.
It is...
It's really good.
Extremely good. And one thing I can say about the story that surprised me more than anything... Well, actually, two minor things. One, this game has the best LGBT characters of any piece of fiction I've ever consumed. So if you want that, play this game. And two...
And yes, no, I'll actually clarify on top of that. Not only are they the best LGBT characters, they're like male gay people in a mainstream work of media.
That doesn't happen.
Which because it's always lesbians.
And I'm
It's
glad.
actually 2 men this time.
Don't get me wrong, I love my lesbians in media. Bloom Into You is like my favorite thing. Like it's one of my favorite animes. But the fact that this was a game that was like, all right, 2 men, they're gonna be really freaking cute together, and you're gonna love them. Yes, and on
We're gonna get a 1940s Japanese military man and a science twink.
Yeah. And on a similar note to that, the other thing that really surprised me about this game's story, the fact that despite it being this sci-fi game about the impending apocalypse, the fact that every single romantic subplot was one of my favorite things about this game's story is a testament to how well this game wrote romance.
Oh yeah, if you like ships, you win. This game, you win. It chooses all of the best ships and makes them canon.
Yeah,
and runs with them.
There's a lot of games that kind of imply something, but they won't, they won't commit to the relationship because they don't want to start a fan. No, this game just does it. It's a good game.
It's very good.
It's really freaking good.
Do we have anything more to say about this one? That
it's fucking gorgeous and has a godlike soundtrack.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't even mention the visuals.
Oh my gosh! It's so visually perfect.
So someone on Twitter I saw who was like playing it for the first time, they described it as being lifelike, which despite it being, an anime kind of hand-drawn art style, it feels lifelike. Even though these characters...
It is one of those games that several people, if you've met a fan of this game, there is I'd say 30 to 50% chance that their Twitter banner is literally just one of the backgrounds.
Oh, they're so pretty.
One of the random backgrounds that you just walk around in this game, because all of them are absolutely masterful in their looks.
And the character, like their face, like even though it's pretty simple with like their facial expressions and a lot of like the animations they repeat for when they're thinking or crouching or doing whatever, those animations are still so lifelike that you don't even really notice that much that they're repeating. They're doing the same stock animations because it's all hand drawn, and they can only do so much. But it works so well, and it's so pretty, and the dub is also incredible and godlike, and you can't go wrong with it. Like,
and then that entire dub is it's so good. And then if you, for the soundtrack, if you like the Nier Automata soundtrack, which I don't know how much you've heard of it, Michelle.
I have a basic idea.
It's basically it's basically like that, but a little more techno and with a little more acousticness to it.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, godlike 10 out of 10 soundtrack, so good. Oh my gosh! Talk about this game for 50 years.
If there's one final thing to say about it, without spoiling anything, of the 13 protagonists, who's the best one? I think we agree, but it's Nenji. Yeah, it's Nenji.
It's not my favorite character in the game. I have another favorite character that I cannot say, but they're not one of the main 13. But Nenji has the best story and is probably the best protagonist. Close second is his girlfriend.
I adore Tomi a lot.
Ooh, yeah. If you want a godlike character written by, or voiced by Cassandra Lee Morris, because that's my addiction, there you go.
Then watch Toradora.
Oh boy.
It's a good. Anyway, that's that. So, are you ready to go off on your game?
I want to keep talking about 13
No!
Sentinels. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. It was the game that nobody knew they wanted, but then everyone realized they really wanted, and then when the game came out, they found out that it wasn't actually what they wanted, but across the board at every step, it's absolutely been what I wanted. So on that note, I'm going to gush about this, because Michelle has not played Age of Calamity, but I have.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is a prequel story to Breath of the Wild. Considered one of the best games ever made.
Yep.
I love this game. So freaking good. The original Hyrule Warriors is one of my favorite games ever. It is like 1,000 hours long of content you can continuously get. But it was very simple. So, Hyrule Warriors, the original game, very fun, lengthy game, but very simple. Age of Calamity, so much more complex. The gameplay itself is probably my favorite gameplay of any action game. So much to do, fewer characters than the prior games in the series. On that note, 50 times more in depth. I know you can't really speak for this, but like, for people who need to be sold on this, it's a Warriors type game, meaning you're fighting like 5,000 enemies at once. Great time. People do not like the story. Hear me out.
Okay.
Because it is a prequel to Breath of the Wild. And people don't like that it doesn't end like they expected to end going into Breath of the Wild. But my rebuttal to that is that everything they wanted to see is stuff we already saw in that game. So by the time you get to that point where they fleshed out everything before it, they only change things when you get to the point that you already completely knew about.
Because, I mean, do we have to worry about spoiling the premise of Breath of the Wild, since I think everyone knows at this point, and...
The plot of a Zelda game has not mattered in years. If ever.
I like Skyward.
You're right. Yeah, so Age of Calamity, I don't know, skip ahead like 2 minutes or something if you don't want to be spoiled on the plot. So Age of Calamity ends happily because of time travel shenanigans, and the world doesn't get absolutely butchered. Which I get, people wanted their sad Rogue One-esque ending, but one, Rogue One actually wasn't that good. That's a whole other tangent. Second, I like sad, devastating tragedies like that as well. But we already saw that. Those cutscenes are literally in Zelda Breath of the Wild. We see them. In this game, you see literally everything you wanted to see fleshed out in the backstory of this world in a very effective way until you get to the point where everyone gets completely butchered. And then things get changed in this very awesome Avengers Endgame style, like, satisfaction. And it's great. On top of that, I know you love Skyward Sword, Michelle. So hear me out.
Okay.
Zelda in that game, super good. Zelda's arc in this game is the best Zelda has ever been. Zelda is extremely well written. You should play this game. But I love her arc and the things she goes through. Link is super entertaining. All of the crew and the champions and everything. It's just a super cool cast of idiots going around trying to save the world, and I love it.
Yep.
There's dozens of hours of crap to do. There's just... It is a game that you are getting so much out of what you pay to get. It's not as long as the original Hyrule Warriors because you cannot compete with 1,000 hours. But even before DLC, because I presume that is coming, but even if not, there is so much to this game that you will not be tired of it until you are done.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to do.
It is...
I like...
Because, like, just looking at the game myself whenever, like, it was revealed in, like, the trailers and stuff, it looked extremely good. The combat looked really fun and, like, a really interesting way of blending Hyrule Warriors with the Breath of the Wild mechanics.
Oh, yeah, it completely, like, forwards both concepts very well.
I really liked just the whole idea of just seeing that war 100 years ago. I think is just really interesting. And it's just such a cool concept, just in general.
I think one of my favorite things, which is, I guess, another... It's not really a major spoiler, but if you want to worry about this as well, I guess skip ahead another minute or something. So the day that they go to fight Ganon and his little henchmen, they're about to win this war that they've just set this massive war on Hyrule Castle, and they wipe out all of the enemies except for Ganon. And I guess they were stupid because they planned it on the exact day that a blood moon happened. So all of the enemies come back, and it's a super cool moment where you're like, oh crap, this is a thing. I forgot this was in Breath of the Wild. It's this really nice payoff for people who kind of know the mechanics of that game.
Hmm.
But also, you couldn't have picked any other day, Zelda. You couldn't have waited a day. Oh gosh.
That's great.
But yeah, that's the bulk of my thoughts.
Excuse me. I'm dying. I mean, just looking at it, it's super pretty, super. I don't know. It just feels like a great blend of Breath of the Wild and the Warriors format.
It adds the satisfaction of the Warriors format, and then the dynamic and like almost physics-based nature of like Breath of the Wild. And it is, again, probably my favorite combat system in any game.
Purah's big sex.
At least like action.
Purah's big sex.
She is. She's not playable yet.
Damn it. It's fine.
Yeah, I know.
There's still a lot of porn of her. That's all that matters.
You can play as the king.
Great. I will say, I mean, even beyond that, the character design for like a lot of like those younger versions of those Sheikah people, I think is what they were from that like that version. Like not just Purah, but also
Robbie,
Impa. Purah's especially funny since she's a child in Breath of the Wild because she fucked up. So it's really interesting seeing her as actually an adult. And it makes
and then you see her in Breath of the Wild, and you question your morals for being horny of her.
It doesn't matter.
Not the Breath of the Wild version. Not the Breath of the Wild version.
You okay?
I like Purah.
Cool. It seems like a neat game. We're gonna talk about my game now.
Okay.
One of my favorite game genres of all time is roguelikes. I love games that have sort of this infinite amount of replayability to them, the random generations. I mentioned Spelunky earlier, but also games like Darkest Dungeon, FTL, The Binding of Isaac, stuff like that is a game type that I love. On a different note, Bastion is one of my favorite video games ever made. It is a masterful blend of kind of storytelling and video games. It's a really fun, albeit simple, beat-em-up style game, and overall, it's just really good. So what if you took the gameplay and storytelling style of Bastion, improved both of them exponentially, and made it a roguelike? That you get Hades, one of the greatest roguelikes ever created, because goddamn, this game is really, really good. I love it so much. It is, it's something special. So,
you're a nerd.
Okay. So, like, I'll transition to the last game. Fine, if it could be like that.
It looks really fun.
So, Hades is... I don't know truly how to describe how good Hades is, or like... So, yeah, like I said, it takes a lot of the great gameplay that Bastion had, and it makes it way more satisfying because you have more moves than you did in Bastion. Because Bastion, basically what it did was in Bastion, you could equip 2 weapons at once, kind of, and you used both of them. Whereas in Hades, you only have 1 weapon that you carry, and there's less weapons, but they have like different versions of each weapon that have different functions, and every weapon is way more in depth. And a lot of the enemies and bosses that you fight are more interesting than they were in Bastion. So you have that. So as you progress through the game, you collect, different boons and different power-ups to get stronger as you progress. But, and this is where storytelling through the gameplay really shines through, and this is what Supergiant are geniuses at, is every time you get a boon, you get it from one of the gods on Olympus. And basically, they all give you different powers, but every time you get one, they talk to you and say something. And this game has a ridiculous amount of dialogue. I've been playing it for a while. I still have not repeated dialogue. It's genuinely impressive. And the way every character, they're super distinct personalities, their backstories being told to you gradually throughout the story, as well as, and this is the most interesting thing, the fact that dying in the game, which is a common part of most roguelikes, is a part of the storytelling, because the whole idea is your protagonist Zagreus is trying to escape Hades and reach the surface. He doesn't want to live in the underworld anymore, and he keeps trying to escape over and over again, and that death and that trial and that over and over again is the point of the game. And what also makes it cool is the fact that as you keep dying, you're getting stronger, because you're getting upgrades for, you know, Zagreus himself, upgrades for your weapons, new trinkets that you can equip, different things that can like spawn in the dungeons that you're crawling through that make the game easier, until eventually you are strong enough to claw your way to the top. You're theoretically strong enough from the very beginning of the game, but it's very unlikely because the game gets really hard, and it's really good the way it tells its story that way. One of the most unique stories in games. That's what I love about Supergiant. Their stories in their games cannot be told in any medium other than video games, which is part of what makes them so special.
You know, that's cool and all, but have you played Clubhouse games?
You know, I didn't disrespect you talking about Zelda.
No, Hades is a game I've wanted to get to for a while, and it seems extremely fun gameplay-wise. I have a soft spot for, like, Greek mythos, so even just, like, the announcement of this game hit real different.
That as well. Like,
only difference was that it was announced for Epic Game Store, so I kind of stopped caring for a little bit.
Yeah, that as well. Like, Greek mythology, Kid Icarus Uprising, one of the greatest video games ever made. I adore that game. I adore its characters. So having kind of like this take on it is really interesting. What I also find interesting about the way that's done, and I think it shows just how expansive Greek mythology is most of the characters, there isn't a lot of overlap between the characters in Kid Icarus Uprising and Hades, other than Hades himself is like the only character.
Greek mythos has a wide cast of characters.
It really does. It's really interesting, and like, yeah, it's like there's not much overlap other than just Hades, so it's really cool. I really freaking like it. It's really well done. It is. I adore Bastion. Bastion is still one of my favorite games ever, and Bastion is still very much worth playing. But I think this is now Supergiant's best game, because whenever I heard, oh, Supergiant is making a game similar to Bastion, this is a roguelike, I want it. I didn't get it until it came to Switch, and like I just kind of picked it up there. Pick it up. It's on Switch, Steam, Epic Game Store. All worth it. Play it, please, for the love of God.
It's a good old time.
Do you have any other opinions on the game, even if you haven't played much of it? Or any of it?
I think some of the girls are pretty cute.
There are some very cute girls. This game does let you be gay if you wish. Visually as well. God damn, this
dang. It looks
so
gorgeous even from the outside.
Such a fucking pretty game. The music is really good. It kind of took me a bit to really start appreciating the music, but like it has something I love in games: dynamic music. The music is very dynamic in the way that, like, because like the boss theme is kind of an extension of the music that was playing before you got to the boss, and it really amps up once you get there, and it amps up like during the conversation you have with the boss. That's really cool. It is super good. I was playing it earlier today. Very, very fun. Really hard, definitely, but eventually once you start to really nail the game and understand how to play it, how all the weapons work, and once you're at like your maximum power that you can make Zagreus, it is so fun. And you start to, the roguelikes kind of have like this thin line to tread of like having that luck aspect that makes every run different, while still not making it feel like your victory was reliant on luck. I feel like that's something Isaac especially can struggle with sometimes. Hades doesn't really have that. Like, don't get me wrong, you can just get really lucky and get a godlike run that kind of breaks the game, but that's very rare. You know, the stars very much have to align for that to happen. For the most part, you always have a chance as long as you're making the right decisions and you're good enough at the game. If you're good enough, like, if you're good enough and can avoid attacks well enough, you can beat the game without picking up a single power. Hell, there's a trinket in the game that encourages that because it makes you stronger if you don't have powers. But, you know, it's really great. Also, like I said, can't give enough praise to how well this game's characters are written and how fun they are.
Basically, 2020 has been a freaking good year for games.
So let's talk about a game that came out in 2016.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, we did it. We did it. We subverted everyone's expectations. Persona 5 Royal was the best game of 2020. Who would have thought we'd say that?
I like this game.
Yeah. Persona 5 Royal, it's the best video game ever made.
Yeah. We're gonna get crucified for saying that.
Yes.
I don't care. Jesus was right.
Sorry.
Anyways.
Okay. I don't know what you were going on about. I like Persona. I don't know, you start. Say something fun about Persona 5 The Royal.
Line. No, Royal is... You can cut that down, please.
No, okay.
A little too long of a pause. Royal is phenomenal. It is... 13 Sentinels is my second favorite game of all time. That swooped in this year. Ooh! But Royal replaced my old favorite game of all time, which was Persona 5.
Yeah, same for me.
So, on that note, first big question people ask: 1, remake. Why the frick is this considered one of the best games of the year? Because they remade it really well.
And because, well, one, don't complain about a remake being game of the year when so many people made it FF7 remake or Xenoblade. Screw you. But
yeah,
if your game of the year was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and you're questioning why our favorite game of the year is Persona 5 Royal, you need to reevaluate yourself.
Yeah. So on that note, the new stuff they add so fantastically transforms the game, because Persona 5 is a game I adore.
Mm-hmm.
Very flawed, though. Has a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, every genuinely notable issue was fixed in Royal.
Any other issue that either wasn't fixed or was quote-unquote created with Royal is such a nitpick that I could not care less. If you brought it up to me as a reason that, you know, Persona 5 shouldn't be the game of the year, I would say, that's cool. I do not care.
Yes. So on that note, Royal has like my favorite gameplay loop of just any video game.
Yep.
Freaking the social aspects amped up to such a nice degree. So much to do. So many godlike characters. The RPG combat has so much more to it.
Mm-hmm.
From how guns work now, to show times, to when you're going in the palaces and use your grappling hook, to going in the palaces throwing your grappling hook at people.
Yeah.
To still using your grappling hook. I
like
really like the grappling hook.
For me, yeah, and like, because, I mean, as well as like comparing this to other Persona, air quotes, remakes, like, Persona 3 FES didn't really add much, it just kind of rounded out the story with the answer. Persona 3 Portable added the whole female route, but it came with a lot of, like, sacrifices and a lot of drawbacks, and because of that, there isn't really a definitive Persona 3. And Persona 4 Golden managed to take a story that I've always considered to be great but kind of empty, and make it somehow both more empty and more bloated at the same time. I still think Golden's the best version of Persona 4, mostly just for quality of life stuff, and also the fact that it's on Steam, so you can actually buy it.
It's the best with several caveats.
Yeah, but Royal, somehow, like, I feel like I could play Vanilla P3, and it would be the same thing just without the answer. I could play Vanilla P4, and even if it would pay me to listen to that dub voice for Chie, I could still deal with it, and I'd still enjoy it. I can, even if I love the game, I could never go back to Vanilla P5 ever again now. Royal is just too good.
13 Sentinels may be my second favorite game of all time. In air quotes that you can't see, it technically is original P5 just because of my passion and love for it. Mm-hmm. But this game actually accomplishes and transcends that game to such a masterful degree that while I adore that game, I don't think I'm going to touch it in several years because I have the good one, the better one.
Because like from like major battle reworks, like the way technicals work now to be more interesting, the like showtime attacks, Memento's basically complete overhaul, like
an entire new 40 hours to the game that is literally the best part of the game.
Yeah, new story elements scattered throughout the game. Even like little things, like just the tiniest quality of life changes that you wouldn't notice unless you're us. Is like, you know, not only just like, you know, all the character sprites being redrawn and all the new outfits given to them, but also like, I don't know, just stupid little things like, you know, like the new heads up menu for like choosing social links that you can use, that kind of like recommends what to do next. I'm trying to think of like just all like the little, like just like the little things as well, like.
You see like more like characters just around the city and stuff that you can just like kind of interact with. Like one of my favorite things was towards the end of the game, the third semester. Like I was just walking around Kichijoji, which is an entirely new section that has so much crap in it.
Where like every
and so
store
much
is
stuff
interesting and there's something cool to do there.
And I was chilling out there on a completely innocuous day, and I just see Kawakami getting wasted out of nowhere. I'm like,
yeah, there's that.
All right. This is great.
You can also like find Haru like in the early game. You can talk to her a couple times just like as an NPC. Doesn't like Makoto have more in like Kamoshida's arc, which makes sense with who she is?
Maybe.
There's
a lot.
I don't remember.
It's a very big game.
I don't remember if it's like a required part of the cutscene what Makoto says, but I know like after the big thing, like the big turning point in the first arc, you can kind of see her talking about it and being worried and kind of pressured about what's going on.
I could believe it. That might be a thing prior. I have no clue. It's such a massive game. It's a lot to keep track.
Every palace like getting like new like bits to them for like will seeds. Every boss getting reworks. Every single boss rework being better, including Okumura. Like, it's so good.
It's
oh man.
And again, I mentioned it before. The final portion of this game is so masterfully told with so many arcs that actually made me cry.
Yeah.
That and it has one of the greatest, if not the greatest, antagonists in video games. But who cares about all that? Thieves' Den.
Oh man.
Woo!
We're bringing it all around. We're going back to cards.
Yeah, see, we played Clubhouse so we could play Tycoon or President, whatever you want to call it, but our addiction had to start somewhere, and it started with Royal.
It is like the number of people are like, I don't know if Royal's not worth it. It's not worth $60. No, bullshit. Like Royal is worth $60 even if you play P5. It's not $60 anymore because Atlas games drop in price pretty quick, but like Royal is 100% worth it.
Yeah, because
like Thieves' Den, just as a testament to how much is in this game, Thieves' Den is not story related. You don't ever have to touch it, but there's a lot to do there because you can play Tycoon, you can play cards with your friends, you can rewatch all the cutscenes, you can you
can listen to the 50,000 pieces of unique dialogue between characters you would never see interact in the game.
Yeah, like now,
talking about random bullcrap. Like you want to see freaking Tei Takemi and friggin' Kawakami's like feelings on, I don't know, painting Madarame.
I was gonna say I really needed to hear Shinya and Awai talk about Piggytron, and they can. You know, like there's so many dumb little things like that like, you know, let confidants that wouldn't normally talk have minor interactions, even if most of it isn't canon. You can the party members getting like little bits of depth in like their conversations, being able to listen to all the music. Like, it is so freaking good.
It's like, it's not as in-depth as like the analysis section we talked about in 13 Sentinels, but the spirit is there, and it is just a nice, pleasant place to go to. You can change the music to be whatever you want, decorate it in not like the most expansive ways, but basically as much as you really need to. It's just a very comfy place. You get tons of like promotional art. You can watch every cutscene.
All the art. Concept art as well.
Oh my god, it's awesome.
The what's it called? Yeah, and like Thieves' Den, even if it's almost certainly not canon, it is for P5 a game which is, you know, a lot of it is kind of that. A big point of that game is that the characters are kind of, you know, they're all outcasts, and a lot of stuff doesn't really go right for them. It's kind of nice just have this place that they can go and just hang out, and just nothing bad can happen to them in the Thieves' Den. That's something I just like. Again, even if it's not canon, it's still just a nice place to be. And And that's, you know, just a side thing to the 100+ hour JRPG.
P5R in total just feels like a massive celebration in several ways, and it earned that through the game itself.
If you want us to talk more in depth about it and more spoilers about it, on our good friend Adam on his channel, I'll link in the description. We have a 2-hour discussion about the game whenever we first beat it. You can watch that.
It's a lot there. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is my favorite video game ever made for good reason. I know, you know, amongst like bits of the internet, P5's kind of a joke about like its shitty fan base, whether the game isn't as good as people say, but I no, it is.
There's a reason it has acclaim.
There is a reason this game gained its massive fan base. There's a reason that this, for a lot of people, became the JRPG to compare other JRPGs to, because this game became a new gold standard for JRPGs, at least in my opinion.
There's a reason it has the best representation of any Smash character.
Yeah, like there is a reason this game has so much. There's a reason that this remake of a 2016 game is the highest rated game of 2020 on Metacritic.
It's also the highest rated game on the PS4 on Metacritic, which I don't trust Metacritic. That's the only circumstance where I do.
But they're right. In this case, they did it. Like, it is nothing short of a masterpiece. Like, every other Persona game, I can kind of go, like, you know, I can have issues with it, especially P4. Like, I have a lot of issues with its pacing and some of its character writing. P3, the beginning's kind of bland, and one of the party members is garbage, but, like, the rest of the game's really good. Persona 5, you would have to hold a gun to my head to get me to truly say something bad about the game, and even then it would just be nitpicks. My biggest issue with the game is just that it's too easy. And that mercenary mode is a lie.
But yeah, you're right. But it is so freaking fun that the difficulty does not matter.
Yeah, it
is extremely fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and if I want to play a hard JRPG, Persona typically isn't my go-to. I'll play mainline SMT. I'll play Darkest Dungeon. You know, like, I'll play something like that that's made to be hard. Persona isn't necessarily made to be hard. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, so in kind of jokingly said earlier, but in a year like this one where there were so many absolute masterpieces released, play all of these if you get the chance, but honestly...
Especially 7s.
You're right. But in all seriousness, like, $20-$30 for this game for something that I put on one run, just enjoying myself 160 hours. There's a lot there, and replaying gives you more stuff to do as well.
Yeah, New Game Plus is still really fun to go through if you're that dedicated like me. I will say, if Royal did not come out this year, which, you know, Japan, but shush. If Royal did not come out this year, it would have been a really hard pick for my Game of the Year, because it would have been basically, like, a very difficult three-way decision between Like a Dragon, 13 Sentinels, and Hades. But luckily, Persona 5 Royal did come out, and I didn't have to make a choice.
Yeah.
2020 was a pretty good year for games, even if it wasn't a good year for anything else. And yeah.
You're right. And that's why gamers are superior.
We did it. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Meet us back here next year when Persona 5 Strikers is our Game of the Year.
You're right! Let's go!
It's not even a joke, it's just gonna happen.
Yup. Alright, that's where we cut it.
Yep. Alright, we did it. That was fun.
Not even a joke, it's just gonna happen.